Welcome to Fictioneering 101. So, what is Fictioneering? It is, to me, and the way I'm teaching it, a methodical way to write fiction. It helps us solve that mystery of where do story ideas come from, and helps us put a method to the madness of writing stories. So, I like it because it sounds like a cross between fiction, engineering, which is a bit more scientific, because in a way we are working with story blueprints in this course. And, there's also pioneering, doing something new, going on an adventure. So Fictioneering 101, don't let the 101 fool you, because even if the practice can be kind of basic in a way. The ad-lib, thesaurus, fill-in-the-blank technique that I'll be teaching you. But it's 101 definitely in the sense of a college-level course. And it's as challenging as you make it to be. So, let's teach this to you in the context of the first lesson. And I recommend getting a dedicated journal for Fictioneering. This is a Leuchtturm 1917 B5 composition notebook that is ruled. And when I was first formulating the idea for this course, in its prototypical phase, I was thinking, wouldn't it be nice to fill an entire quality notebook full of story sketches and ideas? And I originally bought one with that intention, but my mind took over. I did not have enough story ideas, so I began journaling. And what I realized by journaling was, by the time I got to page, I think 20 of just writing my ideas each day in the morning, I came up with a new story idea. And so as we go into Fictioneering, I do recommend that you supplement with journaling in a separate notebook. Because your mind needs to roam wild and free. You need to get in the habit of putting your thoughts on the page for Fictioneering to work well. And for me, I like to do morning pages where you write, could be half a page, or up to 3 pages of just your free form stream of consciousness thoughts in the morning. Just make sure it serves you, because 3 pages can take 45 minutes. Even 1 page can take 20 minutes. So sometimes I'll just do a 5-minute gratitude journal, talking about what I'm grateful for, what would make today great, so on and so forth. So journaling is a great way to keep your writing muscles warmed up, and to kind of keep your ego fed, so you can kind of fuel your creativity by making sure that you're honoring your own mind and your own thoughts, and not just using your mind as a tool, that serves you to serve emails or to write things for work. Or to just write stories. Your mind is more than just a tool. You need to take care of it, feed it, nurture it, and hear what it has to say. So journaling is a good prerequisite to Fictioneering, to loosen things up and to get you in touch with yourself. But Fictioneering, I recommend having your own notebook for it. And through journaling, I finally came up with the idea of what could help me reliably fill up a notebook full of quality story sketches and writing. And what I learned from journaling is, and it applies to Fictioneering, is you don't know what surprises the next page will hold. I didn't know that I was going to get a story idea on page 20 in my journal. And likewise, for this one is a slim soft cover. It has 123 pages. You don't know what the next page is going to hold. If you were to fill up an entire notebook, you don't know. It's full of surprises. The blank page, the blank canvas is full of so many surprises. So let's get into the first lesson. And we were to copy the preface to the Picture of Dorian Gray. Why did I choose to hand copy the preface to the Picture of Dorian Gray? Well, first of all, because I think it has a great message about art And I think it sets the tone for the course of Fictioneering 101. The artist is the creator of beautiful things. And at the end it says, the only excuse for making a useless thing is that one admires it intensely, and all art is quite useless. That preface took me 19 minutes to copy off of Gutenberg website, the Gutenberg project, because they have all of the public domain stories typed up nicely. And I think when you're handwriting, it's helpful to have it just there up on the screen. It makes for easy copying, and you don't have to hold a old book with yellowed pages open. So I recommend using the Gutenberg project for your copying because it's all free, all public domain, which will dictate the nature of the content of this course. I will say I'm building this course in real time, and I'm going to be doing all the activities until I fill this notebook, which means there'll eventually be about 60 quality lessons, which I will then polish and sell as a finished course. But right now, you're getting all this value for free because you're on this journey with me. In the meantime, if you're waiting for me to post another lesson or something, you could use this with your own favorite books. I just can't include that content in my course because I don't want to get into copyright claim issues. Even if it's for educational purposes, I'm going to be sticking to public domain texts like the Picture of Dorian Gray. So the preface sets the tone, but it also serves another function. As you can see, this page is blank. It is unlined. So I turn to the next page and we get into what a final first lesson will look like. On this page, I hand copied as much as I could of the intro of chapter 1 of the Picture of Dorian Gray. It's word for word in the author's words. And on the page next to it, I did my own version, which we're going to get into here, the meat of the lesson. So I highly recommend either getting a Leuchtturm B5 composition notebook like mine, lined, soft cover, 123 pages, because it lays open nicely. So you can copy it on one side, and then when you get into the creative part, you have the model text right there, which makes it very easy to write. And so hand copying as much as I could fit of chapter 1 of the Picture of Dorian Gray onto one page took me, I timed myself. That's right, my starting time at the top corner and my stop time at the bottom corner took me 25 minutes and 25 seconds. So treat it like a meditation, because it is. You're in communion with the creative force of God, the creator. You're also kind of mingling spirits, or literally getting in the mind of the author, these literary greats. And I think what's going to be great about Fictioneering 101 is, in the age of, modern authors that are very wonderful, like Stephen King, David Foster Wallace, walk into the bookstore, there's more than you can read in a lifetime. I think going back to some of the classics that are in public domain because they're older works and they've stood the test of time is going to set you apart from the, social media posting, internet-brained writers of today, where every single paragraph is a line long, like an email, and you're going to get into writing more thoughtful, slowed down writing, that was done before the age of television and all of that distraction. So it's a different way of thinking. And so you copy it, you slow down, you meditate. There's no rush. You should enjoy this. You don't have to do it all in one day, or all of the activities. I would recommend trying to copy the chapter in one sitting, or to fill just one page. And I say stop at one page because while there is magic to sitting and hand copying, ideally, you want to save some hand strength for writing your own creative version next to it. So the first step is hand copy the mentor text. Now, I recommended this notebook. You could also get 2 cheaper notebooks, like a standard college ruled spiral notebook. Do your copy on one, have the other next to it. I think it really works nicely to have your texts side by side, so it can be time that you're away from a screen after you've copied the original. To answer another question, you could type these. The first time I attempted this method that I now call Fictioneering 101, or my thesaurus ad-lib fill-in-the-blank method, was over the summer of 2020. I typed a lot of a Stephen King story, Secret Window, Secret Garden. I typed a lot of words. I forget the exact word count of the original, but then I used the method I'm going to teach you, and over the summer I did 9,000 words of, different artists do like a cover of a song. I called it Covering the Story. I wrote it without the intent to ever publish or make money off of it because obviously of copyright issues, but it was great practice. And after the summer and the fall, when I got my next story idea, my writing changed. My paragraphs were thicker. It definitely improved my ability to write. And that's Fictioneering fulfills its promise in a mysterious way. You're simply going to write more. You're going to learn from the greatest writers, and you are going to be seeding your mind with what I call heirloom story seed ideas. You'll be writing these scenes of your own in the style of the literary greats. And so I've done this before extensively, focusing on Stephen King, although now we're focusing on public domain texts, still great writers. And the premise applies that whether you are already working on a story, whether you have writer's block and you can't think of story ideas, but you want to write, you want to feel what it feels right to write the perfect story, the hand copying part is great. And even if you keep up with this and only do the hand copying parts, you'll become a better writer if you get your own story ideas. Many authors have used just writing someone's novel, typing it out. I like writing it out when possible. That's why I keep it to a page, because typing you can go on and on. Writing really slows you down and gets you in their state of mind. Many authors have been known to type novels word for word to get the feel of their favorite authors. Zadie Smith comes to mind. I think I remember her saying that. So I had the chance to ask her a question when she came to Toledo one time for a book talk, and I said, "What did you learn from your students?" Because she was a professor at a New York creative writing school. Maybe it was NYU, I forget which one. But she said what she learned from her college students was how not to write. A lot of cliche writing. Characters were all sitting in a cafe, smoking cigarettes and drinking coffee, just cliches type stuff. So she learned how not to write from her students. And we are learning how to write directly from the greats. So beyond just copying, which is a value in its own, it'll make you a better story writer. It will, even if you're just sending emails at work, it will definitely kind of seed your mind with some great writing. But we're going to take it one step further in Fictioneering. And like I said in the first lesson, the email about that, on the second page, you'll use my paint by numbers, thesaurus, ad-lib, fill-in-the-blank methods to recreate your own version of the story. For the copying, I recommend keeping one page. If you really got inspired, you could go beyond one page here. But my idea is that as we go through these pages, it'll be a perfect mirror on each page. And all said, in this 123-page notebook, I might have 60 high-quality story ideas. So, again, I highly recommend writing in such a way that they are laying side by side. I'll link the Loic term below, unless there may be one that you prefer. So whether you're laying two different notebooks side by side, or you can get a quality one that lays open flat, I highly recommend that. So there's 3 tiers to approach this. Tier 3 is flash fictioneering, where you just basically, I may provide a prompt, or you get the gist of the scene you just copied and you try and do your own version of it, totally off the top of your head, freestyling it, just in the spirit of that. The second tier is ad-lib and some fill in the blanks. You don't have to agonize over changing every single word and phrase. You can just change the main ideas. So for example, a male character could be written as a female, or humans could be rewritten as talking animals. You could change the setting from rain to snow, change what season it is, change the environment or the setting from indoor to outdoor, from a painter's studio to a writer on the back deck, as I did. But the version I want to tell you about today is Tier 1, where you change each and every word, including transitional phrases, to entirely reskin the story. And that's what I did here. I think I'll just paste my text in the description, my version of it. But I want you to see what my page looks like. And I will say I timed this. So to recap, copying the preface just to set the tone for what our budding novella-sized notebook will become about art and the value of art. Kind of our philosophy of art as writers here. That took 19 minutes to copy the entire preface, and I just left blank because I got to the end of the preface. Chapter 1 took 25 minutes. Now, doing my own version of Chapter 1, I think it was like 450-ish words total. I'm assuming this was approximately 450 words because I got to the same part in the story. This typed up was about 450, 460 words. As you can see, this took me, I started at 1:02 p.m. and I finished at 2:55 p.m. And this was dedicated writing time. I got up to research 2 things about the story, and I'll tell you about that. So, this is how it works for me. You'll notice that you got to get over the fear of being imperfect. You might even make a few errors when copying. But as you can see, the copied, I think I maybe had to cross out or rewrite 1 or 2 things because I missed a turn of phrase. But over here you can see I'm crossing things out, scratching out, rewriting, making sure I get the exact right word choice. So I changed the setting. Instead of the opening scene, which was an artist studio filled with the rich odor of roses, which this story inspired me to go to Yankee Candle and get a fresh cut roses candle so that my own, it's not a studio, I call it a study here, my home study could smell like the opening scene of the Picture of Dorian Gray and get me in that artistic mindset. They talk about the studio was filled with the rich odor of roses, and when the light summer wind stirred amidst the trees of the garden, there came through the open door the heavy scent of the lilac. So, I got both going just to keep me in that fictioneering mood. Now, I changed my story, for example, just that opening line to... Now, I said in my draft, because I did type this up and post it. Originally, instead of the, I wanted to change every word. So instead of saying the, I said his backyard. And then I realized my opening character, because there's 2 characters in the scene, I was like, wait, the first character in the opening scene is going to be a female. So in my draft, I wrote the, and then I crossed it out and put his. And later when I typed it up, changed it to her, because I was like, wait a minute, I need to be consistent. And instead of the studio, I said, so his, or the final draft, her backyard was incensed with the pungent aroma of campfire smoke. And when the late autumn breeze blew among the branches on the trees, there wafted unto his nose the dried bouquet of brown leaves and the most subtle tang of a gasoline-powered leaf blower. A few things I crossed out, like I added, instead of just yard, I added backyard, crossed out leaves and made it branches. I didn't know if I was going to go with leaf blower / lawnmower. I crossed out lawnmower and changed that. So this is very much an exercise in word choice. You are definitely going to be a fictioneer, a wordsmith. You're going to know every synonym in the book the more that you practice this. And you're going to have some great writing too. As you can see, I'll paste my example, my final example below. So just a lot of crossing out, deliberating over word choice. An interesting thing with mine is you also can't you have to make sure that you're taking a step back periodically and seeing the forest for the trees. You don't want to get lost in the tall grass, way out in the weeds. You got to make sure you're keeping an eye on the big picture and that your story is consistent. So in the original, he talks about how the shadows of birds flying across the silk curtain had a Japanese effect, like a Japanese painting showing bird shadows in motion. And in mine, I was like, well, they're in the backyard. It's late autumn. A lot of the birds have left this part of Ohio, not hearing them as much. So I said, well, there's a dog barking. So instead of a shadow, I'm hearing a bark. And what's the effect? So it reminded him of a different mode of art. And I see, because this is a long, section. He went into detail here. He said, how can I parallel that and make it make sense? So I had a dog barking, and instead of shadows on a curtain, I made it reflecting off of their home siding in the backyard and creating like a heavy metal emo band effect, like a dog barking, that kind of like echo chamber going, because dogs will just sit in their backyard and bark. And instead of comparing it to Japanese painting with the swiftness of motion captured in a still medium, I made the barking dog, compared it to Midwest emo screamo hardcore music. So there's moments like that where as you're working through the finer details, you have to make sure that it still makes sense. And there I had to pause and think about the reality of my scene, because I was writing myself into this. I became, instead of the artist or the painter, it was me on my back deck writing. And so another thing where there's two things where I actually had to go research. And you can have some fun with this because it will make you a better writer. So instead of the bee, which one of my favorite lines from the original was, the sullen murmur of the bees shouldering their way through the long unmown grass, or circling with monotonous insistence round the dusty gilt of horns of the straggling woodbine, which is like a honeysuckle. And I made some AI art based on that because it was my favorite image. You would have seen that bee in the lesson email about this. So I got that image of like, I liked the bees kind of like tiredly like shouldering past, because there's like bumbling like shouldering past the blades of grass. I just thought that was brilliant. Like they're moving through a crowd and they're shouldering past that. So for me, I was like, oddly enough, I think it was the day I wrote the email for lesson one, I saw a bee and I felt like that was a synchronicity. You will start to notice synchronicities as you write, become more aware of things, and you'll attract certain things into your life, whether you notice the last bees of autumn or whether you decide to go out and get a candle to put yourself in that mood. So this will definitely culturally enrich you too by reading just quality literature and really slowing down and getting into it. And we'll be doing a lot of excerpts. Even though like when I originally did this, I did 9,000 words of the Stephen King story. I didn't have to finish the short story or novella to become better. I did as much as I had time to that summer, before getting busy with schoolwork again. And likewise here, we're going to be sampling different stories, and it's not about the completeness, it's about writing scenes, because stories come to you a word and a sentence at a time, or an image at a time, and we're just getting better at describing those with pristine, crystal clear, high quality literary prose. So I wanted that idea of the bee shouldering past, but most of the bees have gone in late autumn, which mine is set in, instead of summer like the original. So I love the rabbits in my yard. Any rabbit that is in my yard becomes my pet, and they are all named Tubbo or Tubbalina because they're always in pairs. So Tubbo and Tubbalina, I always have pet rabbits. Whichever rabbits are in my yard or neighborhood, that's their name. So I wanted to work that into the story. And as you can see from the an email I sent with my example, I did some AI art based on the rabbits. But I was like, okay, the soft patter of two rabbits moving slowly across the dry, yellowed yard and nibbling with cautious curiosity on the emerald green hearts of the lucky shamrocks seemed to make the scarcity more apparent. I think I later changed scarcity to solemnity when I was typing it. Again, a final editing process. I was like, wait a minute. Okay, rabbits are still around, but what are they eating? Because most things have dried up and died, like plant life. So I walked out in my backyard where the rabbits hang out, and aside from all the dried grass and weeds of summer, like everything that's dried up, I looked in my little garden area, and there was a little cluster of clover, 3-leaf clover, maybe if I would have looked hard enough, I could have found a 4-leaf one in there. And I did a little research. What do rabbits eat? Yeah, they eat that. Because I thought about putting in wild prickly lettuce, because there's prickly lettuce that grows in my backyard that is literally prickly, like would hurt would poke you pretty good if you grabbed it. But I've seen rabbits sit there and eat it, but that's out of season. That went out of season in September. There's none in my backyard. So I like that image of clover. I was researching, do rabbits eat clover? What type of clover grows in Ohio? And then I saw, clover is also called shamrocks. And that seemed much more literary to me. So I put in the lucky shamrocks. And I said, well, what are the leaves called? So you're doing research about words, meanings, making things accurate, becoming more aware of the world you're creating, which is useful when you have your own stories to write. And I said, you get into the minutia of like, well, what are the leaves of a clover called? And they were called leaflets, other things, but they were called hearts. And I liked that, very literary, and they are heart-shaped. It's accurate. So I said, the emerald green hearts of the lucky shamrocks. And that's something that the rabbits eat, and is still there at the time I'm writing it. The other part, the line right after that I had to research, I live, there's a highway a few streets over from where I live, and I can hear it very distinctly this time of year and all through the winter, because there's no bird sounds, insect songs, there's no leaves in the trees to dampen the sound of the highway in the distance. And so in the winter, already the air is quiet, aside from maybe the wind and the dry leaves, and you can really hear the highway. Even in the middle of the night, you can hear that distant drone. And so here's the line from the story. The dim roar of London was like the bourdon note of a distant organ. I love that, how like the city is just sustaining that low bass note as they're in their they're very rich aristocratic people in this story, but in their maybe mansion, I don't know exactly what, but in their artist studio in the summer, they can hear the sound of the city in the distance. And for me, in a suburb, I suppose you could say, is the distant sound of the highway. And it's something I've always been aware of, but I was like, how do I describe that? And I started looking up synonyms here using the dictionary app on my laptop and going to the thesaurus tab on that. Or you could just Google synonyms and get into that. Bard AI is a helpful writing assistant too for doing research and learning about words. You might want to get into etymology, look at what the words deeply mean and what their roots and where they came from, so you can pick the exact perfect word. But I was looking up ways to describe the highway noise, and I ended up having to go stand on my front step and just listen and really think about, like, how do I describe that distant highway noise? Like I said previously, when I was writing this, part of the reason it took 111 minutes is because I went out in my backyard to see what do the rabbits have to eat. And likewise, I stood on my front step and I just listened, and I think I did take a moment to be mindful. But other than that, I was really kind of playing that word game in my head of how do I describe that? And I was playing with it for a few minutes in the cool, autumn. It was a nice day out. I stood there and I just listened to it, the direction it was coming from, and it was sustained. It was continuous. And I came up with this. I was very happy with this. The airy howl of the distant highway was like the drone of a faraway bagpipe. And I debated, I wanted to make sure to show that like the highway was distant. So I had distant and then crossed it out, then included it again before highway. And then the drone I was like, do I do hidden bagpipe? And then I wrote, crossed out hidden, and I wrote far away after and drew an arrow. Cause just things that you're doing as you're drafting it. People say the classic phrase is, write drunk, edit sober. And that's not to say that you're drinking alcohol, which I don't. I drink coffee. I got some Starbucks Italian coffee roast with heavy whipping cream. I make it French press style, so there's some silt at the bottom. But write drunk, edit sober. It's not about actually writing drunk. Many of the greatest authors, like Stephen King, David Foster Wallace, others, actually wrote, had a drinking problem and then chose to write sober, and they got better at writing. Don't use alcohol as a crutch in writing. But I prefer coffee. So write drunk, edit sober isn't about that. It's about writing without inhibition. And if you're doing the flash fictioneering style, go for it. If you're writing your own story ideas, go for it. But for the purpose of Fictioneering 101, this is a time where it's that fictioneering. It's the method, the scientific method applied to writing, going word by word, using the original author's story like a blueprint, and really getting into the nitty-gritty of word choice, keeping an eye on the big picture, where's it going, what is the author actually saying here, while reskinning it, giving it new characters' names, details, seasons, choosing the exact right words. And it is a time to actually slow down and get nitpicky with it. And it'll benefit you in the long run, because when it comes time, when you have the inspiration and you're writing your own stories, you're going to have experience writing at such a high level. So it's fine especially if the second page, as I call it, it's fine if it takes you a while or even more than a day. I did this effectively in one sitting though. I got up to research twice. Realistically, maybe take a bathroom break or something from drinking all the coffee, but cheers to all my coffee drinkers out there. So yeah, that's the main part that I wanted to share with you, is about the writing process, the nature of this, and the idea that by having a dedicated journal, if you stick with it, whether you're following Fictioneering 101 closely, like I said, if you're waiting for my next lesson to come out as I build this, you could pick your favorite contemporary author and use the same practice. Copy your favorite scene, page on one side, then do your own version of it on the other. I'm keeping this as its own notebook. And yeah, if I get other story ideas like one I started, I'll probably do that elsewhere in another notebook or type it up. But this thing is going to be special. It will become a kind of a keepsake that will enrich you, make you a better writer. And yeah. And the thing is, you don't have to have read all these classics to benefit from them. I have not read the entirety of The Picture of Dorian Gray. I started listening to it on audiobook though, but I plan on using this purely as a writing exercise. You don't have to know all the classics to benefit from them. But the thing is, I've always loved the intro, the opening scene of The Picture of Dorian Gray. Something about it always spoke to me. And to sit down and handwrite it myself was a very special meditation, very beautiful writing. So that's it for today's lesson. Stay tuned to my YouTube channel for other writing advice videos, my other musings. I will do Fictioneering lessons as needed, but this one probably covers most of the entirety of the course if you understand the writing process of Fictioneering 101. So comment, or if you're on my mailing list, join my mailing list below. You can email me with any questions. I'd love to see the work that you guys are coming up with this, all my Fictioneers. And thanks for watching today's video. I tried to stack it, the content from just in a way that flows logically, that gives you the how-to up front, and then some of the more interesting details on the back end. So I hope you found this to be helpful. Hope you take the time to do some Fictioneering today. And yeah, if you have any questions, join my mailing list and send me an email. I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.